What's up? What's up? What's up? We are back for another episode of Shelf Space, the podcast. And let's do a quick sound check. Um, Stub Mitchell, can you hear me?
Yes, I have you. Do you have me?
I got you. We are rocking and rolling. We were up and running, folks. This week, oh man, we're really excited because we actually got our first guest, really special person that we both know, and she's going to be discussing her book with us in the guest segment around 8:30. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. But here are our introductions. You are watching Shelf Space, the podcast. I'm your host, Almond Brown. That's what I go by as the show. But just call me Al. I've got my co-host here with me, Mr. Stub Mitchell. I'm gonna let him introduce himself, the Facebook's favorite baby daddy. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening once again, everybody. Thank you all for hanging out to the most popular podcast on the face of this flipping earth. My name is Hetty Stub Mitchell. I am one third of the mighty podcast, the Show Space. Hope that we bring something entertaining, thought provoking, and something that sparks some conversations as well too.
Absolutely. And our third host, he may join us tonight. But y'all know him, the always entertaining Mr. Wild Wild West, Ron West. He is always, part of the show. Sometimes not able to make it each week because he's got so much going on. He does have an event coming up this weekend, so we'll make sure that we will plug that later on in the show. But again, Shelf Space is just a place where we come and have conversations about all types of things. We like to focus on mental health awareness, just overall health, building better people, better community, better in ourselves. We don't have all the answers, and a lot of times you see us kind of work it out right here on the show as we discuss our different viewpoints on things. But we bring subjects from pop culture, from the headlines, entertainment, sports, and sometimes we even throw in a little bit of politics, but we don't want to get too political. So we thank you for joining in. When you guys leave comments, and even if you watch it throughout the week, we try to go back and respond. We're always talking about the things that the audience says in our production meetings, and trying to make the show better. So this week, again, I said we're really gearing up for that guest segment, but just to kind of catch up on what we've been doing for the past week since we last talked. Some things that have gone on in the headlines, and some of the shows we've been watching, some of the books we've been reading. One of the things I definitely wanted to bring up, you know, uh, right at the beginning of the show, we had two legends pass away this weekend. Two American legends pass away this weekend, and Bill Russell, everyone knows, NBA legend, really no argument as far as greatest champion in the sports, and just dominant basketball player in his era. Broke so many barriers, not just you know records on the court, but a lot of changes, um, things that he worked in on the civil rights side. So a lot of the progress that we made in this country, Bill Russell was a part of that. And so he passed away this weekend, legend. And also Nichelle Nichols, and some of you may know her as Lieutenant Uhura from Star Trek, and she passed away. And of course, sci-fi fans would know her. But I want to tell those people who may not be as big as sci-fi fans as I am, and I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but I do follow it. Um, she was probably as important as a Bill Russell, honestly. She really set a opened up eyes for a lot of people, a lot of young kids who, especially black kids who were sci-fi fans, and in a lot of some of our communities, that wasn't something that was real popular. You were labeled a nerd, or you just kind of made fun of for liking sci-fi, and we know the lack of diversity in some of those early shows. And she was a pioneer, a groundbreaker, a trailblazer. One of the reasons I watched was because of her presence on there. Her and Spock were just odd to see someone like that looked like her in a position of command and authority. And so probably she didn't probably get talked about enough while she was alive. But Nichelle Nichols was so important to sci-fi fans and to civil rights as just as much as Bill Russell was. So headache. I don't know how much of a sci-fi fan you were, but she is really considered a queen in that um, in that realm.
First interracial kiss on camera. It's
Yes.
a crowning event that had never happened before. And she led the charge. Her and William Shatner led the charge on that one. So that was very monumental, setting precedents for a lot of things that we have going on today.
Yeah, and after she passed, I read a couple of things about her being involved in the show. It was funny that some of the things she mentioned, of course, about William Shatner, just definitely be in love with his ego. Uh, but she was actually considered leaving the show after the first season, because she didn't like the fact that maybe her character was being not being used as she thought it should. And she may have heard this since she's passed, but she had a conversation. She was at an event where she ran into Dr. Martin Luther King. She had a conversation with him. Come to find out that he was a fan, and when she told him that she was thinking of leaving the show, he told her not to do it and expressed to her, which maybe she didn't understand at the time, how important she was to American history, what she was doing, what she was the 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 example she was setting for the rest of America and for young black kids across the country that were watching her. She probably didn't realize it, so she ended up staying, and even and kind of suffered through some of what she felt like was some unfair treatment to later become probably one of the as iconic and as memorable as some of those other lead characters, like Spock and Captain Kirk.
That's always the biggest question that one has to answer is if you leave, then what? What do you do? Where do you go? Um, what is your next plan? Emotion versus just up and quitting.
Yeah.
So I mean, it reminds me of Bill Scott's hearing running, um, where he states, "Running makes me look like everybody else, and sometimes you have to stay there and you have to fight it out."
Oh, nice quote. And you said Gil Scott Heron said that?
Gil Scott Heron. That's
Yeah.
on his album "I'm New Here," but the
Okay.
name of the track is "Running."
Okay.
But
Nice.
it's a deep track. Um, but that's one of the many highlights that's in there when it comes to that one.
Yeah, it's and we've talked about this on the show before too, man. Is like sometimes being a fan of something that may not be considered a norm for your community, kind of makes you feel a little outcasted, a little difficult to talk about. And then, but as sci-fi fans, and especially as black people as sci-fi fans, Nichelle Nichols was so important to just see that. Yeah, they had other black members on Star Trek, but you didn't know their names. They, maybe a moment here or there, kill, but she, command. I really had something. I just didn't think she got her credit for that. So used her to recruit minorities into the space program. So just her her impact on American culture is probably is really understated.
Yeah, I was reading that as well too about how she was influential in recruiting minority astronauts into the space program.
Mhm. And it was
So I
just
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Now I was saying it was if watching stuff like that as a kid, you just notice. Like I don't know how if other people did, but I noticed it. I would imagine other black kids noticed, and you just didn't see a lot of representation in sci-fi, in fantasy, heroes, hero. I mean, even Super Friends. The early episodes of Super Friends, there was nobody on there that was of color. You know, unless it was an alien. And then later on, they actually add a black dude, and they call him Black Vulcan. They think we forgot about that, but they ended up dropping the black and just called him Vulcan. But when he first came on the show, the Joker's name was Black Vulcan. Wasn't nothing on his costume black though.
But that's the thing now is with the explosion of anime. That's what I was watching a few minutes ago. There's a young gentleman now that he's trying to make his mark into introducing um, black people into anime. I'm not a fan of anime. It's a little bit out of my genre.
I'm a huge have been for a long time, and it is it was a lonely place for for black kids who like anime. All there were a lot of them, you just didn't talk about it. And most of the time, your friends that you did hang out with, they didn't watch it. So you just kind of ended up, enjoying it sort of on your own, maybe with a few of your other friends. Um, that is but that is the thing though. I really think there are more kids now. It's more diverse now. It's more talked about, and like all my kids watch anime. They watch. They're bigger anime fans than I am, and they didn't even get that from me. I think they just at, now it's sort of part of young culture. Anime is popular.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It's definitely a huge part of pop culture. So I can see them picking up on it. Um, the only thing I could say, my closest thing to anime would be Space Giants from the '70s.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
that's
know
that's
that.
that's the
Yep.
closest that I've ever delved into in the anime. Even
Yeah.
though it's not
I
anime,
don't
but
say
it's the closest thing
it's
to it.
it's not, but it definitely led to it. Led to some of that. I mean, you can really see. People joke they like the early Transformers, the Space Giants. You know, and if you watch the Space Giants, then I know you watch Godzilla movies. So
Of course. Um, have you ever been to a Comic Con? You plan on going to Comic Con? Is Comic Con the
I have, right. I have not been. Got some friends that have been. I have a cousin who's really into that. Mida's brother, he's been. So we like to discuss it, but I haven't been. And if I did go, I would enjoy it. I can't see myself dressing up. I don't think I would do that, but definitely would enjoy going though.
I'm thinking about going to one next year. One of my boys that I was in the army with, one of my fraternity brothers, he's what you call him? He just got back from Comic Con and sent me a Doom sticker from there as well. And when I thanked him for it, that's when he told me that he had just gotten back from Comic Con.
I would say this though. There is a direct relationship between anime and hip hop. Um, you can see it in some of the artists' music and art. Um, you know, along with martial arts, movies, Godzilla, MF Doom, good example. But definitely has influences of anime and some movies like seems like Space Giants and Godzilla because he used a lot of that sound effects in his music. So
King
there's a
Ghidorah.
direct yes, there's a direct line from where the art of anime and the anime fans connect with hip hop, from all over the world. So that's something also interesting. So also this week, I know you've watched some P Valley. We had another episode. We discussed that in our production meeting. So give me a breakdown of what happened this week, what you saw, what stood out to you on this episode.
I guess you can finally say you can understand where Roulette got her name from. With the game that she played, and she played it extremely well. Pushing Whisper into doing something that she really didn't want to do, but she convinced her to do it anyway, even when she resulted to her, I want to say, spiritual side, where she went against that, and even questioned it. Um, Getting more backstory on the mayoral race, where the preacher, she did that one well. She took one for the team extremely well.
Pastor
Um,
Woodbine, I
yes,
fell
Pastor
out
Woodbine.
after that political ad. I fell out. I fell out.
So that one,
Oh
she rolled that one out. Especially when she said, "I did all of this so that you
yes,
wouldn't have to." True fashion, true fashion.
yeah.
She wore that one well. I was reading about Lil Murder, his hair color change. That one was supposed to be a significance of development. That he's kind of like a snake shedding the skin. That he shedded the hair color to get back to his true roots.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes, but
Okay.
that's what the writer was talking about the hair color. Because I really didn't pay attention to the hair color. I was reading it prior to watching it, so I could pay more attention to it. Um, and that's as soon as Uncle Clifford was cutting his hair, it
Right,
kind of registered in. And that
right.
tell your daddy, I'll tell you, I tell him that his daddy love him. That's Uncle Murder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, not Uncle Murder.
So
That's Lil Murder.
right. So when he comes out and offs the dude who tried to claim you know, Teek's death.
Clout, clout
Yeah,
chasing.
right. Calls him out on that one, and actually, if you haven't seen it, sorry for the spoiler alert, but he takes him out. I want to say one of the things that stood out to me in this episode was Uncle Clifford in the shower, crying in the shower. So that, in my
Okay,
mind, that's who I think of Uncle Clifford. That's when I think of Uncle Clifford. That's who I think of. I think of the hard exterior when he's out of the house, when he's dealing with business, when he's dealing, with those with the employees trying to save the strip clubs, trying to save the pink. But when he's home, he's in, and the wigs come off, and he sort of dresses down, and he's just around grandma, that he becomes much more vulnerable, and he deals probably with a lot of um, his own childhood trauma. Um, you see him at the headstone talking, to his mom, and just those are his safe places. That's his crutch, just leaning on his mom, being able to talk to her. But in the shower when he cries, it's just so much is on him, but he can't show his weakness and his vulnerability in front of anybody. Not even he tries to even protect himself from murder. So, but in the shower he could cry, and that's the Uncle Clifford that I saw in season 1, and I think they got away from in season 2, where I think he became a little more, uh, a little weaker. I don't even want to say the word weak, just because he shared his true feelings a lot of times. But I just felt like he became a little softer this season, um, and I think he snapped back from that, just from that experience he had with murder, what happened, and you know, boom, and he goes and he just kind of lets it out in the shower.
I know that side is there, but I think I'm more comfortable with the rough exterior. Um, Kind of reminds me of something that my sister always says about people in their mask. Everybody wears a mask. The problem is that you're afraid that your mask is gonna crack out in public. And the whole time that I was watching that shower scene, those words kept playing in my head. And then where his mask finally cracked, where it actually shattered. But the only place that one can be truly vulnerable is in the shower, where your tears mixed with the running water, and somehow it provides you some type of solace, some type of comfort. Um, but I mean, you're still hiding in one of the darkest places in the whole entire house, in the bathroom. No windows. It's only one way in and one way out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess is coming to terms and facing what's actually going on, and that's someplace where you can't run. Is in the bathroom. Is, like I said, it's a box canyon. There's one way in and one way out.
One way in, one way out, and so he comes out of the shower, and we've discussed this scene here. Mm, we felt it was a little disingenuous, because it goes into, again, this show isn't for everybody, but it goes into a graphic sex scene between two gay lovers, and I feel like sometimes when they do that, it takes away from it overshadows the real message that they're trying to get across, and that vulnerable moment between two people where one's trying to trust each other, they're trying to share some deeper feelings that they can't really share with nobody, and they finally get to a point where they feel like they can talk and express themselves, and then bam, it goes into that. So kind of give us what I know you talked about it. So what are some of the things about that moment that you feel like you know
It's already enough for Black people to have to, in order to enjoy this show and how great the show is. But it's kind of like the price of admission, where you have to be involved in that stuff. But with that one, and the way that the characters flip roles, even to the point where Uncle Clifford did not have his wig on, no makeup, that he was actually the male energy in the relationship, and Lil Murder being on the receiving end. It kind of throws a mixed message to people. And from what I was seeing, a lot of people are confused, to where, who is this guy? Um, that this wasn't supposed to happen. So that was a grueling scene, and that one was painful to sit through. Because I
uh
mean, to actually see Uncle Clifford like that, and to see him as a man, versus seeing him as a manly woman, it's two different animals altogether, two different people altogether.
right.
Um, and that one, nah, they don't need to revisit that one. That should be one time incident. Um, that and that one alone.
I agree. I agree. uh so right now we're actually we're going to get her pulled up, um, and she is in the studio, but I do not see her. So give me just a second on that. Um, One of the things that you mentioned also about this past week was the incident with Roulette and Whisper. Um, and that one stood out to me also as far as her comfort with death. Um, Maybe that's
Hold,
where she
hold on,
got.
hold on for 1 second. Is that
Yeah.
really comfort or is that acceptance?
Mm.
So,
Uh,
and the reason I'm asking that is because they have not really delved into her backstory, and at the beginning of it, they were looking to bring her forward, or they're thrusting her forward. That's the reason why I ask that is if it's comfort or if it's acceptance, because there's clearly something that's going on with her that they have not divulged just yet.
it's coming. So something there's some mystery about her. Um, her backstory would be interesting to see where like you said that comfort with it. Some type of traumatic experience happened. So her backstory is going to be interesting to where she is, walks up to the edge of committing suicide, basically. As plays with her life carelessly, um, and we'll see.
From my aspect, I'm thinking more along the lines of acceptance. And what made me think about that is also with Mercedes and the way her life is going. Um, she's at a crossroad at her. I won't even say she's at a crossroad. She's already blown through the stop sign, and she does not know how to stop. And she has to come to grips with what's actually going on with her as well too. So that's where I'm thinking that this is more about acceptance. That this episode is about acceptance
Hmm.
with all the characters and everything that everybody is going through from um her daughter's mother, Mercedes' daughter's mother, um, the mayoral candidates, and them facing what it is that they have going on, and also Lil Murder, him getting back into the life and accepting that this is who I am.
Gotcha. And well, when you see Murder having that conversation with Clifford about, what's the world to think about me. So it, I, I think you're really on track. You got it. You hit it on the head. Like this season is really about acceptance, and all the characters have got to come to a point of accepting where they are in their life. You also talked about Mercedes and her daughter. Another dichotomy there of acceptance because of what she's tried to do to mold her daughter's life, as much as she could because she wasn't involved in it, but as much as she could, and then try to make sure that she wasn't like her mother. But she's got to come to some point of acceptance that there is some of Pastor Woodbine in you. You know what I mean? As much as you hated it, there is some in you.
That fall that she took, I think it's really a big semblance of a lot of things that we have going on in our life, that we're not afraid of falling. What if we don't get back up? And that's where she is right now, is having to get back up, even though her shoulder is healed. But she's just off track some type of where, some type of how, and she doesn't know how to get back up.
Okay. All right. I am messaging Renita now. We're getting her on in the stream. She's having a little difficulty coming on, but I know you've ordered the book, um, and I hadn't had a chance to get that in, but we know a little bit of that, the backstory to this one. So this is another one, kind of transitioning from acceptance into this, is that this is her journey, and I'll let her talk more about it. But her journey about finding her father, reconnecting with her father. Uh, we we'll talk often about the on here about how we are the influence that our parents had on us, whichever dynamic you had growing up, the importance of that, of having that. But then also we've talked about not, you know, not having it, and what type of we talk especially about young kids, out here today that may not have that influence, what types of values and perspectives that they form about not only their world outside but their world on the inside. um, you know we all have our different relationships with our parents, but how much of that influences us and carries on into adulthood.
I mean, that's huge. Especially when we do become when we do become our parents' child, or we become our parent. Especially if you're growing up in a single household, wondering what that other half is like, what the other half would have ever been. For me, I didn't grow up with my pops. My mom's was instrumental in us getting back together. Really, I was not interested in it because he had been gone for so long. But she was like, "Nah, you don't have a choice. Um, what we're gonna do is you're gonna get to know the other side of your family, and if you all connect, then you all connect. But you do have other side. You do have other family members that you do need to get to know." And she was instrumental in quarterbacking that one. And my pops is he's my boy now. I love him to death,
Really?
and I'm glad that that he's here. Um, Greatest moment that I've ever had with my father was 1999, 2000. That's who I brought the Millennium in with. That same weekend, I did something with my pops that a lot of kids never get the opportunity to have, and that's to sit down and have an ice cream cone with my pops.
Wow. Wow,
And
really?
that was huge. That was huge for me.
Okay.
And that's normally how I celebrate my Father's Day. Even though I am not a father, but I do have a ice cream cone on Father's Day.
Dude, I did not know that, man. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. Hang on a second. I'm having her call in, so just give me just a second. All right. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Oh, perfect. Damn, we're gonna do it like this, man. Let me do a quick mic check. Uh, Mr. Headache Mitchell, can you hear Miss Renita just fine?
I have her. I have her.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and give me a mic check real quick, Raymond.
I got you.
Okay, perfect. You hear him okay, Renita?
Yeah, I can hear him okay now.
All right, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. We are really excited to have you to have you on. Um, you and I have talked and about your book. When I last saw you, actually saw you, think you came by the reunion. You told me about it, and I've had a chance to pick it up and read it, and I'm just like floored. One, how well it is written, but your story is just really amazing. So I appreciate you doing this for us, coming on and being able to talk about it. So what I want to do real quick is just let you introduce yourself to the audience, and then do a quick introduction about the book. And we're gonna let you talk about it. And then we got some questions for you. So
Okay.
so all right. So does that sound okay?
That sounds great. That sounds great.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the people listening.
Okay, my name is Renita Gibbs. I'm the CEO and the president of a company called Fresh Wisdom. And I'm a mother, a wife. I'm originally from Augusta, Georgia area. We have two boys, 19 and 22. And of course, I'm a Glen Hill Spartan.
That's right. That's right. That's actually where we all met. So thank you. Yes.
And your son just had a birthday, did he not?
He did. He did.
Happy birthday to your son.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. Now tell us in your words a little bit about your book and why why people should pick it up.
Okay, well, my book is called Finding Daddy, and it's a true story about my life on what I went through being raised without my biological father, and how that really affected me throughout my years of growing up. It explores the opportunity for it explores the effect of a young girl growing up without her father, who goes on a journey to find her biological father. So it's a true story. The book will impact readers, and it'll awake many to the existing problems of what we have today with this growing epidemic of being a fatherless daughter.
Wow. So you mentioned the word epidemic, and we hear that it kind of strikes fear in some people, and we get a little nervous when you say epidemic. You mean that this pattern that we see in some households, and communities keeps repeating itself. So just talk a little bit about that, like you called it an epidemic. What are some of the effects and some of the things that you've seen as this pattern repeats itself, sometimes within the same household?
Right. When I say a growing epidemic, I mean that it's touching every nationality. I mean, this is something that's been like a generational curse. That's been something that's been going on for years and years and years. I mean, whether you're African American, whether you're white, black, whatever your race is, Asian. I have spoken at several different conferences, and every nationality, being a father's daughter has touched one of those households. Because, as you grow up, without your biological father, let me say this, a girl gets her identity from her dad. So when she grows up without her dad in her life, she struggles with certain things, such as looking for love in all the wrong places. Fatherless daughters date older men. They struggle with abandonment. They, have low self-esteem. Some fatherless daughters are very promiscuous. They deal with rejection, and they don't really know their value. They don't know their worth. So it's a growing epidemic that's just taking the nation by storm. And, one of the things that I'm doing, Chris, is I'm really exposing who I am to help as many people as possible who want to say yes to being a fatherless daughter no more, and not hide behind that shame of being fatherless.
Wow. Headache, I'll go ahead and let you get something in.
Is it really shame or uncertainty or with dealing with that, or lack of identity?
Say it again, I didn't hear you.
Is it shame? Is it uncertainty, lack of identity that is the driving force behind all of this?
Yes, I would say so. I think I heard the question right, but I would say you have a lot of uncertainties, and a lot of fatherless daughters, they have issues with their identity because, you know, like I said, our dad is our first love. He's the one who set that example for us. You know, our dad make us feel safe. He make us feel secure, and he's our protector. So, you know, when you don't have those things, certain things, like you just said, sets up in a fatherless daughter's life.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. So let's get into some questions here for you because I think when me and Headache talked about it, and we talked about your book and you know some of the things I was sharing with him, some of the things in it, and we know you, but we didn't really know you. Yeah,
Right.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you did it because on our show we have talked about being vulnerable and and about shame, how we don't like to experience it, and a lot of times it will cause us to hide things about ourselves where we think we'll be judged, you know, and just things that we didn't think people would accept about us or find it as a weakness. So, and in this book, Renita, you were so open and candid about a lot of things that happened in your life, things that were going on in your life at a time like we would see you every day and had no idea, you know. Yeah. So so we got a couple of questions for you. And one of the things that, you know, that I wanted to ask you was I wanted to know what part of the book did you find have the hardest time writing? I mean, there were a lot of moments in there where you really shared some personal stuff. And I'm just wondering, was there some things in there that you were just like, I don't know, you know, this is hard to write, you know, so kind of share with us about that.
I would think the hardest part of my book was probably the last chapter, which was chapter 16. And that's when I was talking about going to glory when my father passed. I think that was the most challenging part because that's an experience that I had to relive. And for me to be fatherless for so many years, 39 years, and, you know, only blessed with the last 6 months of my daddy's life. So when he died, that was very hard on me because it's like I had just got him and then now he's gone. So writing that last chapter was probably the most challenging part of the book for me because I had to relive every moment and I was able to kind of like feel some of those some of those feelings that I felt when he was living.
Right. Headache, go ahead.
I don't know, for me, and this is a portion where I'm going to give you your flowers. You have always been the perfect example of perfection. Ever since I've known you, every hair has been in place. You have always been immaculate. You were the it person while we were in school. Your life has turned out exactly like how I saw it, even when we were kids. So when I first came across this, I had no earthly idea. I did not know who this person was. Um, but that's what I wanted to give you your flowers. Your life has turned out exactly like how I had envisioned it, even when we were children.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really, really, really appreciate that. You know, that just goes to show that we go through things that people don't even have a clue of what's really going on because it's so amazing that he said that because a lot of my friends who do know me, first of all, they thought I came from a 2-parent household by the way that I carry myself.
Right.
And then on
Yes.
top of that, you know, when they heard my story or when they read my story, they was like, oh my God, I didn't know all that was going on. That's the reason why it's so important that we, you know, we check on each other and see what's going on with each other because all this was going on under all of that that y'all didn't know. But, you know, I had to deal with it and I dealt with it and I kept it moving.
Right.
But it was very challenging, especially in high school for me. It was real challenging.
I can imagine.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Just learning how to cope with that. I think that's really what kind of blew both of us away is just, wow, you have some amazing coping skills. So now there are also some very funny moments. I found fun, little funny stories that you share in the book about you growing up, just, growing up actually in the projects, and then moving and experiencing different schools and different friendships. But there were some funny moments, things that made me laugh. So I'm wondering for you, what are some of the moments in the book that you were writing that, maybe you had to stop for a minute and wipe tears out of your eyes for laughing? So what are some of those, going from the hardest moments to now the more funny and joyful moments?
Well, some of the most memorable and funny moments, like you were saying, moving to a new neighborhood. I think that was around chapter 8, when I was talking about moving to a new neighborhood as well as a new school, because we was raised in the projects. So to go from a projects to an actual house, I think subdivision at the time was Butler Manor that we had moved to, and we was just so excited about just having a house and having our own space and our own yard. And it was just some things that I talked about in the book that was really just very priceless to me. It was small to some people, but it was amazing to me because we went from a project to our own house. So that was pretty cool. That was a funny moment. And then I don't know if you remember, but in the book I talked about one of my first jobs was working at Woodworth's.
Yes.
And that was it was very interesting. And I had a lot of funny moments at that, because, anybody who worked on Broad Street know every day was a different day. So I actually worked at Woodworth's, and, it was a cool place to work. But it was just so many funny moments and so many things that took place while I was working at that particular store that I talked about in the book. And I think it kind of brought some light to some of the readers that probably was reading it, because they was able to relate, like you said, to some of the things I was talking about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things I know, anybody who's from the area, when you pick up the book, you're gonna be just drawn in, because you name places, you describe places that we know about, and we have our own memories of those things too. So it was fun that you shared that, and it was really just really made it even just more endearing. And even those people who aren't from here, if you grew up like that, there was always the spot where all the teenagers hung out. There were, just the same type of conversations that you had with your friends, people all over, young girls all over having with their friends about boys and, who likes you and that kind of thing. So,
Right.
So that was very good. It gave such really good character to, bringing the words off the page. So that was awesome.
And that was my whole purpose when we started out, on this journey as far as writing the book. I wanted the audience and the readers to feel as though they're in the story with me. And I wanted it to be so intriguing that you didn't even want to put it down. You were so excited about what's happening next that you just kept turning the pages. And that's the reason why we described everything the way I wanted to describe it, all the way down to the jelly shoes, to the sassy jeans, and to the Jordache jeans. Just everything that we was doing back in the day, I was able to relate and bring it home to make the person feel like they was, as they read it, man, I remember that, those type things.
Okay. All right. So another question for you. Then we're gonna dig a little deeper. Okay. Because as you read the book, and you probably will agree, like there's the way you end some chapters are, they sort of feel like huge moments, cliffhangers maybe. It feels like moments where you've grown or you have to come to a decision. Almost feel like it's like a major fork in the road for you. When you first meet your father, and going through the courts and all, and he says he's coming to see you, and you say you don't see him again, and things like that. What are those moments and events that are in the book where you feel like you as a person are evolving? You're not completely grown up, but you feel like it caused you to make a decision to become, that next person.
I would really say that Me, probably the experience that I went through, that I had to head off to college. I think in the book, that's a chapter that I talk about heading off to college, and that was when I was writing about that. That was a very challenging time for me, because that was an experience where I had to, step up to the plate.
Yeah.
Because I was heading off to college and things was getting ready to change in my life, and it really made me into turn into the female that I am today, because now I'm no longer at home with mama, and I got to really become that young lady that, and all those things that she instilled in me as a little girl had to take root, and I had to put them into play. So me heading off to college was one of the areas in the book that I talked about that really had to make me involved, develop into who I was. And then, my summer job, I had a summer job. I think it's still open today at Savannah Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
And on that summer job, that was very, very challenging, because it had to make me, I wasn't a little girl no more on that job, because I had a hard hat on.
Yeah.
I had a hard hat on. I was a pipe fitter apprentice. And that was very, very, very interesting to me, because, it made me into a woman, because I had to really know what I was doing in order to, keep that job. So those was two areas in the book that I know I specifically wrote about, that, it brought some light to some things to me as I was, putting it on paper.
Right. Now you were very close to your sister, and actually didn't realize you actually had an older brother. So you talk about them in the book, a lot. But when you first, and I want you to kind of describe this for the audience, when you first, going through the courts, you meet your father, and you talk about how he takes you to McDonald's, and you got this moment where you think you're going to build this relationship with him, and you don't see him again. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. So you and your sister really close. So what are those conversations like between you and her after you realize he's not doing what he said he was going to do, and the days and the weeks and the years go by? It's a long time before you see him again. Actually, you don't see him again for how many years?
Shoot. About 30 plus.
30 plus years. Wow.
Man,
So help us understand you and your sister. What are those conversations like?
Well, you know what, that was very, very interesting, because once we left the courts, of course we hung out at McDonald's, and I think he came to the house. Yeah, he came to the house, and we hung out at the house, and his last words to us after he took us to McDonald's and spent some quality time with us was, "I'll see you guys soon." And like you said, that never happened. It was 30 plus years. Matter of fact, 39 plus years before I seen him again, because he did not hold up to his end of the deal. He told us one thing and he didn't do that. And me and my sister used to have conversations about, as far as feeling let down, we was hurt, of course, because we had got so excited when we met him initially at the courts, not knowing that we wasn't going to see him no more. So, we had conversations about him letting us down again and how hurt we was. But it was so interesting, Chris, because the everybody have their own fatherless daughter experience. Yeah. And my experience growing up into adulthood is totally different from my sister's experience, because see, I always wanted to be daddy's little girl. We have the same mother and the same father. However, her experience, even once I found my father in 2010, she was like, whatever, yeah. She didn't care, so it affected me totally different than the way it affected her. So when we was kids and we went through that little experience at McDonald's, we had some conversations about that as we got older. But now that we're adults now, she can kind of like care less about the whole experience. It didn't touch her the way that it touched me.
Yeah. That's why I asked you that, because I noticed that in the book where it manifested itself in two different ways in YouTube. So even though y'all grew up in the same house, had the same experience, it clearly in the book you wanted to make that connection, and she didn't.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Headache, go ahead.
No, I was laughing because my brothers and my sisters, my pops around, they were closer to him. So I kind of felt like how your sister felt with my relationship with my pops before my mom stepped in, to where I know who he is. It's all right. I'm cool with it. And my mom was like, "No, you're not cool with it. You need to get to know your pops." So I can kind of resonate with your sister on how she felt about your pops. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him.
You know, sometimes we as fatherless children, we run with this cliche, and a lot of people say it. Well, Renita, you can't miss nothing that you never had. That's what our mouths say, because we're so upset because he or she was not present in our life and they wasn't there to be the mother or the father in our life. So we say things like that just on a cliche, just to say it. But in actuality, that's not what our hearts say. Because even though my sister felt the way she did, my husband and I was able to do our vow renewal, because I told my dad once I met him that he did not walk me down the aisle when I initially got married. So shortly after we connected, I asked him if me and my husband renew our vows, will he come to Georgia and officially walk me down the aisle? And that's exactly what he did, and it was an epic moment. I mean, it was an epic moment. I mean, a priceless moment, really. And it's funny because my sister had all that unforgiveness in her heart, and she was upset. But when she seen him with her own eyes, everything changed. Everything changed. I mean, she got very emotional. She broke down. She was like, just all in his face and talking to him. So I seen that little girl that she was trying to hide or put away show up again in her adulthood, at that particular event.
Man, wow. So 39, almost 40 years pass. Okay. And I want the audience to know you've got some people leaving some comments to me. I'm gonna make sure I drop in the comments where to get the book, the title, everything, all the information you guys need to know to pick up the book. But 39, almost 40 years pass. And this book covers, you growing up, going through high school, graduating, going off to college, getting a job, getting married, even talk about how you met your spouse. And then that moment comes where that desire inside you to reconnect really takes control. And I don't want to give everything away. I want people to get the book and read it. But you find yourself in the same city where your father is, and you talk about, you look for him, you go to find him. But the courage that it took, because you mentioned, you being scared, but you wanting to do it. And so talk about that thought process of where you finally decide, I'm going to make this happen.
Well, I was on a speaking engagement, and all throughout my high school and college years, as long as I was in school, I was able to get military benefits. And from time to time, when you go to the doctor, they have to update the record. So I had always had my daddy's address, and I knew that he was a retired sergeant major from Fort Bragg. That's information I knew. So when I was on this speaking engagement, I was driving to the hotel, and I saw that the Fort Bragg was so many miles up the road, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yep.
And when I seen that, I was like, wow. And I said, man, my daddy is in this state. It's no way that I'm going to be this close to him would not make a connection.
Right.
So I made it up in my mind as we was driving that after I got finished doing what I came to that state to do, that I was going to take it upon myself to knock on the door. And that's exactly what I did. And it was a awesome opportunity because I was able to connect with him that way. But the first day that I went, of course, no one was at the house. And I was a little upset. And I was like, oh, well, at least I tried. I came this far. Hey, I did my part. But that's not what my heart was saying. Because when I seen my maiden name on the mailbox, I knew I was at the right place and everything. And I was like, well, I just go and see what happened. But when he wasn't there, I was disappointed and I was upset and I was mad because I felt as though I had came so far and I was let down. But God led me to go back that next day. And when I went back that next day, that's when he was home. And I was able to make a connection with him. Because when I knocked on the door, I heard movement in the house. So I knew somebody was coming out of the house. I just didn't know that it was going to be my dad. So when he came out the house, I was able to actually look my biological father in the eyes. And I saw so many, we look just alike.
Right.
And I understood where this white hair come from. A lot of people don't understand why your hair so white. It come from my daddy. So I understood where this white hair come from. But for me to be standing looking at my biological father, it was just mind blowing to me. And the first thing that I was able to tell him is that I love him and that I forgive him from all the years that he was not in my life.
Wow. Oh, hang on just a second. We got to unpack some of that right there, because I want people that are listening to understand that you had not seen him in 39 years. He leaves McDonald's, says, I'll be back. That was it.
Yep.
And now you're at his doorstep in North Carolina, grown woman, married, you live in your life, and you knock on the door and it happens, and you finally make that desire that you've had since being a little girl. You make that connection. That has got to be just the emotions, the overwhelming joy comes out of you. So what is that hug like? Tell us what that's like.
Oh, that was awesome, because like I said, when I went back after we made that connection, we exchanged phone numbers, and we talked on the phone all night long, just about different things. And it was so amazing, because when we got ready to hang the phone up, Chris, something I always wanted to say, I got the opportunity to say. And it's like when I said good night, Daddy, when I just released those words, it's like shackles just fell off my life, broke off my life. It's like God said, okay, you are free. You're released. It's like something I always want to do and I always want to say. I was able to say it that night. So it was just an awesome experience. I mean, it was something that I would cherish for the rest of my life, because that was a aha moment for me.
Wow, man. Headache, go ahead.
I mean, I understand it being a long time in the making. How has your relationship with your father, how has it shaped you as a parent, choosing a husband, you all raising you all's children?
Well, I would say as a parent, one of the things me and my husband talked about when we first got married in 1997 was that we both come from single parent households, and we both know what it feels like to be in that arena. So we talked very heavily about, doing the right thing, staying committed, staying true to the relationship, and staying true to the marriage, because we are the product of, growing up in a household without, the two-parent household. So we made a commitment that we're going to do what we need to do, especially for the kids, to ensure that they don't have to experience some of the things that we had to experience growing up.
Now, you mentioned about the support that you got from your spouse, Derek. I wanted to ask you, during your search, during those frustrating times of trying to find him, thinking maybe I should look for him, maybe I shouldn't, how vital was that support from him to help you keep going until you eventually found your father?
Well, you know, Derek has always supported me throughout the whole process. You know, it's so amazing because, you know, when we got married, from the time I connected with my father, before the time I connected with my father, Derek and I would never really celebrate Father's Day. I would never really celebrate that with him because I was so bent out of shape. So it's like I was robbing him from that particular holiday because it was just really taking me to a whole nother planet to not really have my father in my life. So, you know, he supported me throughout the whole journey. He was there with me throughout everything, even when I was traveling, flying back and forth to, you know, spend those last couple of days with my dad. He was always there to just let me know, I'm here for you, whatever you need. If you read the synopsis on the back of the book, he made it's a little thing on the back of the book, but he said, you can call me daddy. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of the synopsis on the back of the book, you know, and I was able to, he was able to relate to some of the things that I was going through, but as far as just having the support from him and the support from the boys, hey, that was their granddad.
Yeah.
They met their granddad for the first time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So even to the point where when I started writing the book and putting everything together and the time that I had to spend away from the home and with the traveling and everything, they was very supportive and they was like, hey, we're here for you. And that's exactly what they, you know, they supported me throughout the whole process.
Okay. Go ahead, Hetty.
No, I mean, it is amazing how we do think that we don't need a father, but deep down inside that we do. Looking at some of the reviews, you've changed a lot of lives, and a lot of people are highly recommending your book. One person I was seeing said that a lot of fathers do need to read this, and that their relationships will become a lot stronger with their children as well. I don't have a question. Like I said, I was thinking um, about your journey, especially from the outside looking in. It's a lot different. Hearing it come from you, it's a whole lot different, and I would have never thought.
Right. So, and I want to ask you this because you like you said, like we said, you share a lot of personal stuff in there. I mean, were there some times writing this book that you maybe felt like you were being too vulnerable, too open? I mean, I'm not going to tell you. You actually talk about getting your first period in this book and that experience. Like you were really open about growing up, living your life, and the things that you went through. So did you ever feel like you were sharing too much?
I didn't feel as though I was sharing too much in the book because I feel as though my vulnerability was going to be able to help somebody. And I truly believe me being very honest and very open and very transparent about some of the things that I went through and some of the things I wanted to share in the book, I knew it was going to help somebody because I know if God did it for me, he was going to do it for somebody else. And by me being a speaker as well as an author, one of the things that you have to understand is that if a person like you, they're going to listen to you and they're going to read your content. So you have to give the audience enough information for them to feel who you are, to know who you are, so they won't feel as though they just reading a book about a girl who did whatever. Right. You know, they feel comfortable reading a book because I'm being very transparent and I'm getting up close and clear with them about some things that happened in my life. So, you know, I just want to continue to expose who I was and what I went through, and I just help one daughter at a time.
Yeah. No, I think you're going to help daughters and sons, so anybody that can read this book, because like we on this show, we talk a lot about being vulnerable, and we as men have trouble doing that. And and I'm reading your book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I can't believe she wrote that. You know, she said this, and it's just but it gave me just a chance for me to even be a little more introspective about myself, about being more vulnerable with, you know, with my circle of friends, you know, just like you said, because when you're vulnerable, you share those things, you're actually helping people, you know, feel not alone, which a lot of us have felt during this pandemic. And then B, you're helping them understand that I can also make it through this, whatever obstacle is in my way. If Renita made it and felt like this going through it, then there is hope for me. So I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, because you want people to understand that they can relate to some of the things you're doing. You don't want to, you don't want them to feel as though, well, hey, she's never done anything. Mm-hmm. Even to the point where I talked about smoking weed in the book.
You sure did.
So, I want people to know that I'm a real person. I'm good people. I did some things, right. What I'm saying? And if God looked out, if he took care of me the way that he took care of me, I know if they just put the work in, they can have the same kind of outcome or even better. Absolutely. If they just stay focused.
All right. So when did you know this book was going to happen?
Shortly after my dad died. I found my dad in the end of 2009. He died January the 3rd, 2010. And shortly after I connected with my dad, after he passed, God revealed some things to me. And he was like, you know what, Renita, this journey that you've been on, it wasn't even for you. It was for you to put it in a book so you can be a blessing to help somebody. Wow. And I was like, a book? I don't know how to write books. What are you talking about? And, I just prayed about the process and things start to happen. And, I think it took me about 7 months to come up. We wrote 225 pages in 7.5 months.
Wow. That's a lot. You put in a lot of work in a short period of time.
Right, because I was very excited and I was very serious about getting this information out, because I knew if I put it in a book and let some people read it, if they can believe in, they can believe in me, they can believe that it can happen to them too.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So I hope everyone who's listening and goes and checks it out. I'm going to put it in the chat where they can find it. Before we let you go, I want people to get to know you a little bit and some things that maybe inspired you. So kind of share a lot of times on the show, we'll talk about books that we're reading, our favorite authors, music, book, things like that, things that inspire us. So for you, who are some of your favorite authors, movies, music, anything that really you draw inspiration from when you get into that creative mode?
Well, you know what? I read a lot of true story books, but my main thing is self-development and self-help books. I really enjoy reading those because I always want to be the best reader. Right. So John C. Maxwell, Bob Proctor, those are two people that two authors of books that I read. As far as any kind of movie or anything of that nature, I would say one of my favorite movies that I enjoy watching would be The Golden Child, because people have told me for years that I was the golden child of my family. So I had to really look at that movie and see what they were saying.
Okay.
So that's one of the movies that I really enjoy watching. And as far as music, I'm a jazz girl. I love jazz music. Jazz music relaxes me. It put me into that mindset and that frame where I can really start elaborating and collaborate, thinking about things in my life. So I love jazz, but my favorite music artist is Anita Baker, of course. But
oh yeah, okay.
Just being authentic and being true to yourself, and just always becoming the best version of you, constantly working on yourself, constantly trying to improve. What can you do, as far as personal development to make you a better version of yourself?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I've been sort of on a journey of that myself for the past year, just really trying to look at me, see what things I can improve on, how I can, like you mentioned, be the best version of yourself. I think that's where you can really find peace, some happiness when, rather than looking at your external world, look at your internal world and improve, what's coming out of you. So I appreciate that. So one last question from me, and then I'll let Ramo finish it out if he's got another question for you. But one of the things we want to know, will there be more books?
You know what? It will be. When? I don't know yet, because one of the things that I just did in June of this year, I just started my own show, and it's called Moving Beyond the Walls, and it's going to be on one of the fastest and growing media streaming platforms out there called JD3 TV.
Okay.
So that's the next direction that I'm going into. Is that I'm doing? I did my first 2 shows back in June, and so I'm going to build from there. So just be on the lookout for that. As far as another book, I don't know how soon, but I'm moving more towards the shows.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Keep us updated. Absolutely. Go ahead, Headache.
That was actually my next question. What was what's next for Renita Gibbs? But I mean, you've already covered that one. So
yep.
Well, Renita, I am. Let me see if I can just put it in words here. I am honored. I am, just excited that I know you, that you came on and did this interview with us. I am just so impressed, and I want to impress everybody else. Pick up a copy of the book and read it. I hope we teased enough of it for you, for those listening, that they'll go out and read it, because there's so much that happens in between when he leaves you at McDonald's and you find yourself on his doorstep 40 years later. There's so much that happens in between that is all part of that journey that you were talking about. And it's just riveting. And again, I just cannot believe that we sat next to you and we saw you every day and just did not. You have amazing coping skills. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
I know, it's so funny that so many people say that. Girl, I didn't know that. I didn't know you was dealing with that. I'm like, yes. Yeah. they didn't have no clue.
None.
But it's all good. It made me, believe it or not, that journey made me and developed me into the young lady that I am today.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't trade nothing for it. If I had to do it all again, I want it the way that it was done, because it truly have given me the skill set and the tenacity to be the young lady I am today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Raymond, I'm gonna let you get one last word in before we let her go.
once again, thank you for being a blessing to others, turning your story of tragedy into triumph, and being something for someone else. I do really appreciate that, and I do honor you for putting yourself in a vulnerable place to help others, to help themselves. And I do thank you so very much for that.
No problem. Also, if any of your, I know you have my website and you got my email. Mm-hmm. If anybody want to reach out to me directly, they can call the office. I can leave that number just in case.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, and I'll make sure it's in the chat.
It's 404-618-7366. That's my direct office number. And of course, they can always go to the website, renitagibbs.com. Or they can shoot me an email at info@renitagibbs.com.
Fantastic. I will make sure that gets in the chat. Renita, thank you so much. We love you. We are proud of you. And hopefully, the next ventures you have, do not forget about us. We will have you back on to talk about the other ones that you take on. So with that, wish you the best, and you have a good night. Give our love to the family.
Okay, and thank you guys. Y'all keep doing the excellent work, and hey, go Spartans.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. So
that was different.
That was different. That was again, that was just, man. I don't know how often.
Like I said, for me, she was the epitome of. I mean, I won't say was, that she is the epitome of perfection. No flaws, no cracks in her armor, no scandals. Nobody ever had a bad word to say about her. Who would have ever thunk it?
Right. That's after reading it. And everybody's going to get something different from it, but I think the people that knew her from that period are going to be shocked at what she was going through. And we saw her every day. But what just the courage that it takes for your father to leave you at a young age, and for you to still have that desire, that need to have him in your life. And when you find him, I love you, I forgive you, and whatever time you have left, rather than being bitter, you try to make it into something memorable and special. I mean, that is just that was just impressive.
So I don't know. I was thinking about mine and my pop's relationship. Um, I don't know if he thinks that I want something from him, but the only thing I've ever wanted for him is just be my pops. That's it. You don't owe me anything. I've never actually told him that I forgave him because to me there was nothing to forgive. He had his own journey. I had my own journey. The roads kind of led each other, led their way back to each other. So let's just pick it up and take it from here. No apologies necessary.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. And again, I knew you growing up. Don't remember ever having a conversation with you about your pops, but I never felt like it was something that affected you, But I mean, me as a kid, I probably wouldn't know to ask. I grew up in a household with my father, but we weren't really connected. He was kind of there, but and I think with a lot of young men who's, if their dad is in their lives, get to a point especially as a teenager, they become more, I don't know, more is more hostile and belligerent with their father, because they're trying to sprout into manhood so but I didn't think it, I don't know, I didn't think it affected you. It just didn't seem like it to me.
I'm counting now because I mean for us, that was a father not being in the house was like new. Especially the thing with teen pregnancy as well too. I don't have enough hands. I don't have enough feet. On how many fathers were actually on the block?
Mm-hmm.
Because the only house that didn't have a father, I had a stop pops, briefly, but the only houses that didn't have a pops in it was mine and the next door neighbors. But there was a husband and wife across the street. There was a family across the street next door to them, all up the whole entire block on the other side, coming down on both sides around the corner. Everybody had a pops. I mean, back then. So that's what was so amazing to hear her story. It's because back then it was kind of like it was different for a pops to not really be there, for a dad to not really be there. Versus now, it's kind of like it's like the social norm, and
Yeah,
that's
so
what's really
it's the opposite.
mind-boggling to me. Is that we've allowed it to become a social norm to where pops are. I won't even say pops, where dads. It's like it's a revolving door that they're in 1 minute, they're gone for 100,000 moments later.
Right. We got a few comments here I want to read. One is from Dawn, about Renita's interview. She said, "I would have never have guessed that in a million years. She lived around the corner from we rode the same bus. Unbelievable, so amazing." I think that's what a lot of us, after you've read this book, are going to say. She, it just, I mean, one like you said, one of the most well put together, well dressed, well mannered, lady, everything ladylike about her that you could say, you know what I mean, and just it's just shocking to read what she had to deal with and still be a normal kid,
I
basically.
mean, that's why I meant what I said when I said that her life, the way it has panned out, it's kind of like you could kind of see it in the making way back when.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
anything less than that portion, I would really be shocked. But this portion of her life and the road that she's on, no matter how it got her here, I had already seen the destination. Like I said, even when we were kids, she was bound for greatness.
so it got me thinking about just like relationships, the people that I know, their relationships with their father. my relationship with mine. I think about some of my boys, their friends that I know. Um, like Cortez has said to me, he was like, of all my friends, I'm the only one that has two parents in the household. Some of his friends don't have a relationship at all with their father. Um, I think about mine, and I think mine was typical. But I mean, I had some, at some point in my life, probably grew up with a little, maybe some animosity, maybe some dislike for my own. But he was in the house. Um, maybe I felt like he wasn't as involved as he should have been. I mentioned it, to Shimmy sometimes. Like my mom, she was a school teacher, so she worked during the week, off on the weekends, Terry. But when I played sports, even as a young kid, um, a lot of times they didn't come to the game. They didn't come to the games. They were just tired. Or they might show up in the fourth quarter, and that bothered me. That really bothered me, especially in like middle school and in high school. It just bothered me. Um, it felt like it was like even it was important to me, but it wasn't so important to them. And I told that to in my counseling session. I said, I just started to try to excel in things that I thought my parents had value in. They didn't value sports. My mom definitely didn't. She was more about education and arts and things like that. And so I would try different things, do different things that they valued or she valued because I wanted that acceptance from them, rather than try to be good at sports or try to, different things that I wanted to do. I mean, I took flute lessons, so my mom would be happy. You know what I mean? I played that instrument. I played the saxophone. I know you laughing, but I played that instrument. I played the flute for 3 years. I played the sax for 3 years. I was like, would enter in like academic contests and things that I thought they would value. And then, when you excel at them, you come back and you say, look, hey, here's what I did. And pops don't care. Mom's just kind of like too busy. It was like, well, wait a minute, you know, what do I got to do to get your attention, to get that connection? So that's my own journey right there.
My the best and the worst gift that my father ever gave me, that my pops ever gave me, was wanting to be a father. The best and the worst gift my mom's ever gave me was, we're not doing the baby daddy thing. So for me, I've always wanted to be a father, but I had to be married first. That was a goal that I set as a buck scrub way back when. And I am relentless on that I must be married in order to have children. And it's kind of like that post that I put up. Do I want, where I've questioned, do I want to be married more and then have children, or do I want to have children more knowing that I have to be married? Which one is more important, to be married or to have children at this state, at this phase of my life? And I kind of feel like I've robbed my parents, both of them, um, with this mind frame of having to be married in order to have children and not being a baby daddy, that I've robbed them of the greatest gift that I could have given them, and that's being grandparents. That they have no, my grandchild this, my grandchild that. Neither one of them have that, and that's something that really bothers me. And I feel like I failed them as their child, because I was not able to give them something that people create so loosely.
So you feel like you failed them? Is that what you're saying?
It's a mixture between failure and robbing them,
Robbed them. Okay. Okay.
because I have robbed them of the opportunity to have stories about my grandchild this and my grandchild that. Um, the art on the refrigerator art with the magnets. My mom. I know that she bought a dress because she wanted a granddaughter that's still in the attic. That she's the only thing that she's ever wanted was to have that christening, but she's always wanted a granddaughter, and
So
that's something that we've never talked about, we've never hinted at, we've never alluded to.
if it doesn't happen, are you gonna feel remorseful or
That may be regret.
guilty, regret for the
That may
rest
be
of your life?
regret. That may be regret. And I am not regretful for anything, but that may be regret. And that's because of them. It's because of me robbing them of that simple pleasure, like I said, that people create so loosely, and that they throw children away.
Okay. That's an
So
interesting.
those are the things that I have to deal with behind my eyelids, that people don't get to see. But like I said, I refuse to be a baby daddy. I refuse to ask a woman, "Can I borrow my child?" I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm bent on that one. I'm not doing that. I'm not asking you, "Can I borrow my child? Can I borrow
Well,
my child for the weekend?" Or is it okay if I pick my child up from school? Or can I pick my child up to go get ice cream? I'm not doing that.
mhm.
I should
Yeah.
be down the hall. I should be down the hall to where my child can knock on the door and say, "Pops, this, that, and the third," and we figure it out, or we make it happen from
But they did.
inside the household, not from off the phone.
One of the good things is there were so many like single parent homes, during I guess during those times, that there's a lot of kids who, even if they're not married, a lot of men, even if they're not married, they want to be present in their child's life, and they really are active, um, in their child's life. There's some really good examples of people co-parenting, people that never got married but make a concerted effort to not repeat that cycle of
No,
where I'm not, yeah.
that's not an option. So that's been the biggest thing is getting married. But I spent my 20s being a 20-year-old,
And you
fresh out of
should,
high school,
right.
fresh out of high school. I ran into the one. I let her get away. Matter of fact, I went back to Texas for her,
Mm.
and we never could link up. And that's how I wound up back in Fort Hood. Was that when I knew I was going regular Army, I requested to go back to Texas just to be with her. She was in San Antonio, and I was in Killeen, but I didn't have a vehicle at the time. She wound up going to Maryland, Silver Springs, Maryland, and then the relationship just fell apart. Had another opportunity, met the one. I did what I do. I messed that one up. And she went on and she had two beautiful children by somebody else. And I can't blame her.
Ugh.
So, I've had my opportunities, but because of me, and especially because of that last one, she scared the living bejesus out of me because she saw something that I had no idea was there. And with that cheating thing, she gave me the opportunity to do the right thing. And I chose to do different with somebody I really did not want to be with. And that the young lady didn't cost me nothing. I cost it myself. So, I can't blame anybody. I can't even, at this stage of the game, I can't even ask God to send me kids. Because, I've had the opportunity and I've gave it away. And then I rely on that, well, he knows what's in my heart and he knows how much I want it and this, that, and the third. But, if I don't do anything about it, he has no reason to do anything about it.
Look, dude, if you want to have kids, you could do it. You want to have a kid.
Man, a 52-year-old man, what does that get? What does that get into
matter.
being irresponsible?
No, you can do it.
Where I make these little people,
You won't
I
be
make
the
them
first.
fall in love with me, and I only have a couple of days with them. I don't want to put my children in a sort of position to where Renita was with hers.
First. Well, I'm thinking you would get married first.
No, I mean
that
has to happen. That has to happen. I am samurai committed to that one. I have to be married. And that's the thing is I want to be a husband. I want to be somebody's father. I've done things to get myself together and to become a better person, to put myself in that position. So I'm not going to say I deserve it. I mean, I've worked at it. I've put in the work. But the way things are going now and the way relationships are going now, I might have missed the boat. Because, I mean, relationships are not the same anymore.
Well, you're saying you got to get married, though, right? You're saying you're going to do that, right? If you're going to do this, you're going to get married, right?
That is number one top priority. And I want children to come from as a reward, not only to me, but as a thank you to her for trusting me with her children, for trusting me with her legacy, and that she made the right decision. So children for me are not just for me. They're also for my pops because I am the absolute last Mitchell. After me, there is no more. His side of the family tree dies off. And I have to think about his immortality. I'm robbing him of that. I'm robbing him of his immortality.
And I mean, that is a way to look at it. But does that mean you're going to do it?
I mean, I have to.
Oh, now you have to. Okay.
I have to.
It sounds like it's happening then, right?
Some things have to transpire in order for that to happen. But I mean, like I said,
I have some breaking news right here on Shelfspace.
I don't want to be selfish, and I don't want to be callous with the way situations need to be handled. But like I said, I mean, it's something that I want, but a lot of things have to be shuffled around, and some unpleasant things have to be done. But I mean, like I said, it's at this stage of the game, we talking about, even if I get married tomorrow, you're still looking at a 54-year-old man, first-time father.
I mean, yeah, but it won't be the first time. You know, it's happened before. 54-year-olds have done it before, so it can be done. That ain't the question. That ain't even no. Can that happen? Yes. The bigger question.
It can happen, but like I said, I mean, some dishes got to be broken. Some furniture got to be moved around, and I don't want to do that. Because if I do that, it's kind of like throwing somebody away, and I don't want to do that. That's where it starts to look selfish, and then I still got God I got to stand in front of.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like you're just making excuses to do something that you know you've committed to. You in your mind, I think you want to do it. I think you actually would be happy doing it. But right now, it just sounds like you're throwing up your own hurdles. Like nobody's put these hurdles in your way but you. No, you know what I mean?
It's the overthinking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. It's just the overthinking, and I already know that's 10 times out of 10 is the overthinking. Because I mean, even thinking about children growing up in this society where lives are made with no thought, and they're taken away with no thought. And there's no guarantee that my child will make it or my children would make it for the next cycle to continue.
You know, there's
Those
no
those
there's no
that's
guarantee.
the overthinking that I do.
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee of a next week. There's no guarantee of nothing other than right now. So right now, you need to you need to make that decision, that you're going to do it. And I think you already have. You
And
know,
the you is giving me they giving me so much grief behind this with bruh. Out of 17 of us, it's only 2 of y'all that don't have it. If you're gonna continue to be with us, you're gonna have to join the team, bro. And they're like, we don't know what you waiting on.
right?
Cause one of our boys, he's about as old as I am. He got a 1 year old, and they was like, Savannah can have one this late in the game.
Right.
You the hold up. Ain't nobody holding you up. You the hold up. You need to get your stuff together. But my boys, they are giving me so much grief behind that.
Yeah, I'm just saying it can happen. Like, will it happen? Ain't the question. The bigger question is Almond Brown gonna be able to sing this at your wedding?
Please.
Oh, 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 oh. That's the bigger question right there, man. That's all. That's the only decision that needs to be made. That's it.
That's better than inviting Paul and Oates to the wedding.
No, Hall and Oates, you ain't getting Hall and Oates for you dissed on it too hard. You ain't getting no blue-eyed soul. You just get straight up Spandau Ballet. That's what you or some Human League. That's what you gonna get. Man.
But no, that's all that is. It's just overthinking. It's way
it
overthinking.
is.
And like I said,
I agree.
the feelings that I have about robbing both of my parents.
I agree with the overthinking, and I know some, and those listening can leave comments there, but I think maybe the regret or the remorse, or however you want to label it. I think you don't need to carry that guilt either. You know what I mean? I think you're overthinking it, but also you don't need to carry any kind of remorse or guilt about it. So, well, we had a great show tonight. Again, we want to highlight the interview with Renita. Definitely check out her book. I dropped it in the chat. You can go to renitagibbs.com. You can email her at info@renitagibbs.com. The book title is called Finding Daddy, and it's her journey, and it is really deep. I mean, you really feel the emotion from literally. She goes to McDonald's, her and her sister go to McDonald's with her dad after the courts have to tell him, yes, those are your children. They have McDonald's with him. He says, hey, I'm going to be in your life. I'm, this, I'm that. I'm going to come back and see you. And she does not see him again for almost 40 years. Just amazing story. So with that, man, we're gonna get to the closing point of the show. I'm going to talk about some things that we're going to do this week. Some of the hobbies that we got going on, some of the books we're reading, shows we're watching. What's up with you, man? What you got? What you got? You got some shoes
Tonight,
to lay on me? And I hit you with the Zen, the Air Zen Gurus last week, and I'm looking for another pair. Yes, I'm for this collection about to get deep with the sandals.
I was getting ready to send you a link the other day. That something popped up on the .com, but I chose not to. No shoes for this week other than those Air Max Black History Months
I
that
see
I
that.
bought for a piece of art for. I bought them around when Armand Arbery, may Allah peace and blessing be upon him, when he got shot. That's what I bought those for on the Black History Month. Air Maxes. Since he was a runner, I knew that I wanted those. As a reward, I bought those. What else do I have going on? Gil Scott Herons. I'm new here. I will be taking for a spin tonight. Danielson just dropped a new joint with 36 Cypher a couple of days ago. Procreate on iPad. I need to learn how to use so that I can design this logo for us. So I'm getting into that. More P Valley. I am finished with Dawn's book. And I need to find something else to read.
All right. Next week we'll let you give your final review on that book. That is, again, what is the name of that? Men Do Cry? Is it?
No, Cry Like a Man. I can go ahead and wrap that book. I can go ahead and wrap that one up now. It's an autobiography book. It doesn't really give men coping skills, how to be more emotional and how vulnerable. This is his walk with the Lord. How he turned his life over to Christ. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. And that's how he greatness. So I mean, I was a little disappointed because I was looking for something else that I could kind of help young men with, but it wasn't there. Like I said, it was just an autobiography.
Awesome. Okay. And then some of the comments about you getting married and having kids. Monica Smith says, just because you're 54 doesn't mean you won't be a great father. I think she's right. And wanting to be married is just an excuse. And Angie says she thinks you'd be a great dad and a husband. So there you go. You're the only one putting hurdles in the way.
I understand that. I know that.
All right.
I know that.
Okay.
But that, I mean, that's that portion of me that I have to do. I have to do things right, and I have to do them right the first time because I may never get another opportunity. So I mean, that's that competitor that's always been in me. Even when we was playing basketball as kids, I wasn't always the best, but I wasn't going to allow you to beat me.
All right. And Ronnie Perry, thanks for listening. Ronnie Perry says, I love this podcast. So we appreciate it. But apparently I need to do less singing on it because he gave me a big no on that one. So, but
we got a karaoke show coming up.
Let you get married. I'm gonna be built. I'm gonna put a tune down at that wedding. So please understand that. I think for me this week, I wanna continue to do what I've been doing now is actually, working on my health plan. So, I want to continue to be healthy, do, walking, exercise, and stretching. Want to tell everybody out there, not just the men, but everybody out there, make sure you check your blood pressure, monitor it, because it's called the silent killer for a reason. I've seen too many 40-year-olds and people in their late 30s ended up in the hospital, dealing with high blood pressure on medication well before you turn 50. And so I was fortunate enough not to be in that situation. But when I did go to the doctor and he's finally telling me like, hey, you're stage 2, whatever, hypertension. I had no idea what he was talking about. So, but catching it early, making sure, exercising, eating right, those kind of things, I don't have to be on medication, but I'm telling other people, don't ignore your health because it is valuable. Don't ignore your physical health. Don't ignore your mental health. So that's my thing. Probably be doing some skating this week. Me and Mike are going to get on the bikes and enjoy that. She did go hiking last weekend, and I don't have my slideshow ready for that, but she went hiking up in North Carolina. I didn't go. She went with a friend. That's one of her new hobbies. So I want to share some pictures from that. And anybody out there that is taking up hiking as a hobby, would love to talk to you and have some comments from you. So that's what I got, man. We'll be watching some TV. Looks like P Valley is going to be finishing up real soon. I am going to try to find me some books to get into. I got some that sit on the shelf, but I don't crack them open. But I may dive into one of them. Renita's book reminds me a little bit of Lolo Jones, the track star. I actually bought her book. I just didn't read it. I just bought it to support her. I've read a couple of pages, but her book is another one that's about a personal journey and relationship with her father and her mother. I got Kobe's book on the shelf. That is actually a pretty good book from the reviews, but I just haven't cracked it open. So you guys have inspired me to start reading. So that's what I'll be up to. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Again, I'm your host, Almond Brown. You are watching Shelfspace, the podcast. And I'm going to turn it over to Headache Stub Mitchell to close us out, as always.
Once again, I do thank you all, you lovely, beautiful people, for hanging out with us for the 100 million time, and hopefully we are still entertaining you and bringing you something thought-provoking, giving you something back for what it is that you are giving to us, which is your time, which is very valuable. I do thank you all for that. As always, in closing, be good. If you can't be good, be yourself. If you can't be yourself, be honest. Shoot paper, not people.
All right. And with that, we're going to say goodnight, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you all.